following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl, Hentz, and Dan Rylance here. And we've had folks from the day-by-day warming shelter on in the past, but someone new is here tonight. She is the face of, at least we're hoping she's going to be the face of the day-by-day warming shelter. The executive director, Angie McCarthy, is here. So welcome. We appreciate it very much you being here.
Yep.
We're going to talk to Angie tonight about the season that just wrapped up. And kind of what they're doing while in the off season, if you want to call it that, and where they're going in the future. So anyway, welcome again. Yep. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And you did just kind of wrap up the season, right?
We did, yes. April 14th was our last day.
Okay, all right.
So we're open mid-October to mid-April. So we're a true emergency warming shelter.
Okay.
So that differentiates us a little bit from a homeless shelter in that we're only open 180 days out of the year.
Sure.
And it's just during the coldest months of the year.
And we'll talk about why that is and who services these other people during the off months for you guys and that kind of thing. We've had Tina Hafman on, I think probably, 3 times in the past?
So.
Something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
But in case we've got people new to the area or someone has missed it or they just need a refresher, tell us a little bit about how long the shelter's been in Oshkosh, and what kinds of people you have as clients, what kinds of people you serve, that kind of thing.
Sure,
Give us a little
it'd be
history.
my pleasure. We decided a long time ago, and by we I mean the community. There was a group of interested people that really recognized that there was a gap in services for part of the homeless population in the city of Oshkosh. That group included the Winnebago Land Housing Coalition, the group Esther, and many other just interested individuals, both individually and from faith communities and so forth. So not an organized, structured group, but a lot of people with a lot of the same thoughts came together. And they did research for about probably a good year or two, utilizing a lot of the measurement tools that have already been in place for the county, like point-in-time survey, talking with people that were part of the Winnebago Land Housing Coalition, the life report, the life study for southern Winnebago County. So those pieces also indicated what a lot of these folks already knew, and that there were some gaps in services. We refer to the people that we serve as guests. Kind of a little bed and breakfast almost, if you will, for part of the homeless population. And the gaps that was missing, there's probably about 140 to 150 homeless people that have been identified through those different venues as homeless in the city of Oshkosh or greater Oshkosh area. And through those venues, it was estimated there were about 15 that were considered unshelterable. And by that, I mean that they were not eligible for Christine Ann or Father Cars, which are other 2 sheltering options within Oshkosh.
Okay.
So the folks that we take, that gap, if you will, are people, we don't turn anybody away, but the gaps that we were looking to fill were people that really did not have any other sheltering options. So people that are actively using drugs and alcohol, people that have criminal records, people that are mentally ill, just people that didn't have another place to go. And we've come to find out that's also included people that don't speak English, people that have not mended their relationships or have broken relationships with their family. I think we're doing respite care for a lot of families in the community. Right. And people from out of state that are just coming through and they're just here for a night or two and then moving on. The misperception, I think, with a lot of people in the community is that the homeless people are all from out of county or out of state. And according to our data, which we are keeping very close track of from day one, is not true. Most of the people that we take in are our neighbors. They're partners and our neighbors in the community.
Okay. And so, by the way, what is a point-in-time survey?
Point-in-time survey is, again, partners in the coalition, AdvoCap, ourselves, the police department, different entities that work with the homeless population. At certain times throughout the year, we'll send people out between like 10 o'clock at night and 4 o'clock in the morning and go search to find out where homeless people are staying. And so that happens usually twice a year, usually once in January and once in June. And so we gathered that data. And so, for example, some of the folks that head that up and track that data, one individual from AdvoCap, he contacts me regularly and says, how many people do you have there tonight? And I just email him back and let him know how many people we have that evening. So that the point in time survey is where they go out in a specific point in time throughout the year, twice a year, in midwinter and midsummer, and go out and see where people are at.
Now, you said usually in January and June. Now that the shelter is open, will you be doing it in January still?
Oh, they'll still be doing it, yeah.
Really? Because would there be people out there still?
Yeah, there are people that choose to continue to be homeless because of the rules and regulations that all of us are governed under. Every homeless shelter, emergency warming shelter, any entity, we all have to follow rules. And there are individuals that simply would look at us and say, you're no better than a prison, although I like to think we're more of a hotel than we are a prison.
Yeah.
But people will choose to do that. I mean, we didn't have showers at the facility until a month before we closed. And so some people came to the shelter seeking shelter, and when we told them, we told new guests as they came in, well, we don't have showers yet, we're working on that. And they said, oh, then we're not staying. So I don't know what the better choice was there, but maybe it was in their car or whatever. But there are people that would choose to not stay with us as well, and we honor that.
That just seems kind of weird to me. I mean, because if you're staying in a car, you still don't have a shower in your car.
That was my thought.
I mean, cars have a lot of gadgets and amenities on them these days, but that's not a feature that you can get. Yeah. So, aren't you kind of surprised by that?
I'm not sure that's the right answer. I mean,
it's strange.
Yeah.
And so, finishing up on the history, you guys opened. This was your first season.
It was our first season.
You're located at?
We opened October 24th was the day that we opened the door at Day by Day, although I refer to it sometimes as minute by minute. And we, again, 6 months of operation, so mid-October to mid-April. We are located at 449 High Avenue in Oshkosh, which is the most blessed sacrament Faith Community campus. So
the old St. Peter's.
The old St. Peter's, yes. Yeah. And so people say, well, are you in the church? Are you in the gym? Are you at the school? And actually, we are in the old school cafeteria, which is located underneath the gym. And it's a wonderful, wonderful facility. Father Jim, the pastor there, God bless him, said he prayed to the Holy Spirit one night, and it happened to be like around Christmas in 2010, and said, the Holy Spirit wants us to open our doors to you for this population. And really, I think that was a huge risk for him to take on behalf of his parish community. And they have been wonderful to us. They're wonderful landlords. And we've invited them over and answered all their questions and have done open houses for them and the rest of the community as well. We want people to come and see what we do and how we do it. And how important it is, because again, our capacity currently is 20, and we were full the majority of our 6 month for our first season. So that was higher than we had anticipated. We thought we'd average between 12 and 15, and we averaged between 18 and 20 consistently throughout our first season. So we're looking at possibly increasing that number for next season.
Okay.
How about repeats? How many have been there all of the 6 months, or 4 of the months, or 3 of the months?
That's a great question. We're part of what is called the Wisconsin Service Point, so it's a database for the state of Wisconsin, the homeless shelters that choose to be part of that, and we wanted to be part of that from the get-go. They tracked for us. We enter in our data every single night with all the guests that we have. We only had 2 people that were there with us the entire season. We did not put a limit on how many days or months they could stay with us this year. That's something that we'll take into consideration for next year, just because we were full consistently and we did end up turning people away. And we will look at opening our doors hopefully earlier next season as well. The average stay, according to the database, was 22 days. So the average person stayed 22 days. So we had some people that came in, again, a lot of the out-of-staters were in and out within a day or two. Some people were there long-term, and some people were in and out, which is the norm for homelessness actually all over the state, and all the different types of homeless shelters and warming shelters and emergency warming shelters, is that people come and go.
I want to push that just a little bit more. So the average stay is 22 days. Is that sort of disconcerting to you, that that's kind of not the idea, that you were going to continue to have people that maybe needed it for a night or two? This seems almost like a dorm where people are going to stay for extended time periods. Do you feel comfortable with that? Or
We started because we knew there was a gap in the community.
Okay.
We want to make sure that our brothers and sisters, our neighbors in the community in which we live, are taken care of.
Yep.
It's a basic human dignity, a human right. We're really not all that concerned about the circumstances or the situation or how long or how short they stay. We want to make sure that they're safe. And so we'll take them however.
Okay. Now the average 22, could there be people out there that are going to be eliminated because those 22 are there for 20 that may only need it for a night or two and they can't get in?
Well, it possibly. And we did not track specifically people that we turned away, because I didn't want any of my staff or our volunteer who checks people in at the registration desk every night. I wouldn't want to be that person. I didn't want my staff, I didn't want my volunteers sitting there and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're number 21. We don't have a space for you." That would be heart-wrenching for me. So I talked to some of the other shelters and asked what I should do about that. And their suggestion was, when you get to your capacity number, pull the volunteer out of the registration area, close the doors, and just put signs up that we're at capacity. So that's what we did. I don't think that's the best scenario, but that's what we wound up doing this year. Again, I'm hoping that we're going to be having conversations with the city to hopefully expand our capacity number at least somewhat, so we can accommodate those that we think we possibly turned away. And I know on any given week I did try to trace phone calls from individuals or other agencies throughout the state that wanted to send people to us. And I explained to them that the beds are on a first come, first served basis, and we don't hold beds for anybody. So if a person that had stayed with us 22 days came in after curfew and somebody else was already there and we were at 20, that meant that they didn't get to stay. So beds are not assigned. They're on a first come, first served basis every single night of the season.
Okay.
So we tried to do things as fairly as possible for everyone.
If you're going to expand, would you expand in the present location?
Yes.
Or would you go to another location
Nope.
and have two?
No, we love where we're at. We're in the
Okay.
perfect location. We're downtown. We're close to the police
Okay.
department. We're close to workforce development, to the library, to human services, to the bus station. It could not be a better place for us. We have, now that the showers are in it, it really is ideal. And for setup for feeding them, and we have a small relaxation area with recliners and such, and a TV, and the community has just been so supportive of us. I feel like it's my little field of dreams. If you build it, they will come, and they have. And anything and everything that I have asked the community for, whether that be toilet paper or meals to cook and bring in every night as a hot meal for supper, they have come forward. All 180 hot meals were brought in by volunteers in the community. So we could not be more pleased with the support that we've received.
Sure. You had mentioned that these are not out-of-staters, they're our neighbors and partners and that kind of thing. And yet you did say that some of them are from out of state. So I'm confused by that. When they come from out of state, and you'd mentioned like for a night or two, is that really what they're there for, is a night or two and then they're moving on? And so what are the circumstances under which they need to be in the warming shelter?
Well, again, we open our doors to anyone in need of shelter. If they come, when we check them in, we get their name, a birth date, an ID if they have one, but again, that doesn't preclude anyone from staying with us.
Right.
And and then we do, the first time that they come and the only time that they come, we do a pretty intensive intake. And again, the reason being is for funding and for our database for the state of Wisconsin. And it's about a 20 or 30 minute intake. So we get as much information. It's all self-disclosed. I mean, they could be fibbing. They could be telling us the truth.
Sure.
We don't know. And quite honestly, we don't care.
No.
Again, our main goal is to have people safe. And so we provide that. And so it doesn't matter to us if they're there for one night or not. The basic philosophy is if there's a need, we want to step up and make sure that that need is met. So we don't care if it's for a day or 2 days or
But
whatever.
I guess what I'm trying to find out, Angie, is under what circumstances would someone come here from out of state and then need to be in a warming shelter?
Lack of money, lack of funds,
Okay.
not having relatives in the area or friends that they could stay with, not having the funds to do a hotel, or too cold to sleep in the car, and maybe they're moving on to something else. I had an individual who was here from Texas, a wonderful Hispanic man who had a migrant worker job set up, and but they weren't ready for him yet. He got here sooner than anticipated, and we took him in and took care of him, and actually we found him a different job in the meantime, and that had housing already there, so it was great. So one of the things above and beyond just meeting the basic needs, like a roof over their head, a warm meal, a warm bed and a hot meal at night, and we give them a baked breakfast in the morning, is and this is, again, we did some of that this season. We look forward to do that more as the seasons progress, but really providing additional resources, so kind of pointing them in the right direction. We want to encourage self-sufficiency, although some of the families and not families, some of the guests that we serve are not ever going to be able to maintain an apartment or hold down a job. And we're well aware of that. And again, that's one of the reasons that we opened up and to exist, so that they would have that safety net, at least during the coldest months of the year.
Okay.
But we want to get them connected to job service and get them jobs. We had 11 veterans stay with us through the course of the 6 months. And
Recent veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan? Okay.
yeah, so we, people that have had, they come to us for all different reasons. Their house has been foreclosed on, they've lost their jobs, they've burned bridges with their families, lots of different situations and circumstances. And again, to us, it really doesn't matter. The reality is that they're in need, and we want them safe, and so we do what we can.
And you had mentioned non-English speaking folks that you've had some. How are you communicating with them?
Well, that was a challenge, and we try to think outside the box and what we can do. We don't have interpreters on site, but we do have people that do speak other languages that we do have access to.
Okay.
I knew a wee bit of Spanish, and so I knew enough to communicate with him, saying, do you know someone that speaks English? And actually his significant other that was back home in Texas, and he had a phone, and so we called her and put her on speakerphone. So what usually is a 30-minute intake took about an hour and 10 minutes. But we managed that because we put her on speaker, and I explained to her what was going on, and she interpreted everything for him. So he clearly understood what our rules and regulations were. He didn't really fit our criteria. But again, because he had no other sheltering options, I could not. We had space at that time, and so I could not turn him away. So we took him in. So.
What other languages other than Spanish?
That's the only barrier
one.
that we've had so far.
Okay.
I anticipate that there may be others down the road, but right now that was the only one that we've only had that difficulty. The nice thing was we also had another Hispanic gentleman staying with us at that time, and so they were able to converse then on a nightly basis when my staff was there as well. So the interpretation worked really well with another of our guests, and they were happy to do that.
Okay. You had mentioned that some of these folks do have criminal backgrounds, and I don't want to necessarily get into the specifics of what those criminal backgrounds are, but I know that at Father Carr's, they have a pretty stringent list of requirements for who they will and will not take. So I'm assuming that these folks, because of their background, the criminal history, they can't be housed at Father Carr's. And I think there's a suspicion in the community by not necessarily Father Carr's, but people in general. I think some people feel that these individuals, because they've got a criminal background, they would be problematic and cause trouble.
Yeah.
Have you found that to be the case?
No, we had no problems at all, and we were surprised because we're the new kids on the block. We had no idea what to expect. And I think, and again, there's a fear factor involved. Anytime you're dealing with, and I'm going to put in quotes, a high-risk population, I think there's some concern and some fear. The good news is, again, because we are in a wonderful location, we are literally right across the street from the police department. The police department are thrilled that we're open. They are our number one partner with us in making sure that everything goes well. We trained all our staff intensively before we opened to make sure they had the skills and the qualifications necessary that if something problematic came up, we were able to handle that. And I laughed often with Tina because we have probably about 10 different manuals, policies and procedure manuals, and we used every single one of those in the first 4 days that we were open. The fire alarms went off, and so I mean, everything that we had planned for happened in the first 2 or 3 days that we were open, and the good news is everything we planned for, all the policies and procedures worked, and it worked really well.
Okay.
So we did not have any type of problem that we could not handle our first season, knock on wood, and we hope that continues.
Okay. You're going to be doing, this is May, so probably in June you'll be doing another point-in-time study or survey. These folks that you provide housing to for the 6 months that you're open, what happens to them during the other 6 months? Where do they go? Where will you and your partners who do these studies, where will you find them during the course of the next 4, 5, 6 months?
Yeah, that was a huge concern of mine. And even though I understand the philosophy behind a 6-month emergency shelter, especially with cost and expense, and really taking care of the basic needs when they're most necessary in the winter months, that was a concern for mine. It's like, I will want to take them all home with me, and my house isn't that big. So we had to kind of figure out, and I talked to them really from the very beginning. I'm down with the guests on a regular basis, at least weekly, and talking to them about, you understand this is 6 months, so I want you to be thinking ahead. I want you to be talking about maybe mending some relationships or building some fences, or maybe, if you're able to seek some employment, and how can we help you do that? Or, is there, do you have enough income where we could, move you into a rooming house situation, or, look for roommates for you that you could do something, on that level. So we talked about many, many options, and we had most everybody had a place to go by the time that we were closed. Not all of them, and again, some choose not to do any of those things, and that's their choice. I'm not their mom, so I just we do what we can. But familiar places are by the bridge, the parks, any 24-hour places, restrooms that are open, parks, dressing rooms, any place that really is open a lot.
Okay.
Or overnight.
I want to switch a little bit to a broader question, forest question rather than the trees. When you're home at night and you're thinking about it, or you're done now after 6 months, what are 2 or 3 really big lessons that you've learned from your experience?
Just 2 or 3, Dan? I
Yeah,
don't know.
just 2 or 3.
Wow. So many. I, being born and raised here, I had no idea the number of homeless that we have in our own community. That was first and foremost huge. another big lesson was how are myself and my wonderful board of directors and my very few dedicated, wonderful, compassionate staff ever going to make a difference in the lives of those 150 homeless people. And I have to tell you, I could not be more proud of what we have been able to accomplish. And now the sky's the limit. So we're dreaming, we're going to shoot for the moon and hopefully land on the stars and dream big, to be able to, again, open earlier, be able to serve more people, to be able to serve them in a greater capacity as far as, skill development and case management and referrals and medical care and mental health. And I mean, the sky's the limit. We really want to be able to do this because, again, these are our neighbors. And I would do that for either one of you. Why wouldn't I do that for the least of these that have no other options available to them? So those are some of the big poignant things that that pop out, and I'm so pleased that we were able to do what we did already this first season. I can't say enough about my staff. I can't say enough about the 350 plus volunteers, the faith communities, the businesses, small and large, the foundation, the police department, again, St. Vincent de Paul, great partner with us, the community food pantry, wonderful, wonderful folks that it is a true collaborative effort. It's not just us at Day by Day. It's everybody from the community pitching in. About a third of our income this year was from individuals, $5 and $10.
What about the rest of the income?
I write grants both locally for the county, for the state. We're hoping at some point in time, we couldn't write any federal grants. You have to be open a season to be able to do that. So that's also on my to-do list for this summer. And so we're looking at funding through grants, but we don't want to ever put all of our eggs in one basket either.
Sure.
We want to continue to maintain diversified funding. We're going to do a fundraiser and a raffle this summer, so people should keep watching Channel 10 and 2. So that information will be coming out probably within the next week or so about a raffle and a fundraiser that we're doing over summer. So we want people to keep remembering and thinking about us. And I have to tell you, when that storm hit last night, my heart always skips a beat. And wondering where all of our guests and all of our folks are, and if they're safe, and if they're warm, and if they're dry. So that keeps me awake at night a lot.
Yeah. Is part of your
Storms kept her awake last night.
Yeah, I think it kept everybody awake.
I
yeah.
loved it. As part of your dreaming big, if you had your greatest wish, would you like to be open year round to serve the population that is in need of this kind of service?
That's a loaded question, Cheryl. Yes and no. I think that's a wonderful plan, but financially speaking, that's probably, I would say, minimally 5 years out.
Okay.
There's a lot that goes into that. We can't be year-round in the facility that we're at because we'd have to bring that up to ADA codes, American Disability Act, and that would mean putting in sprinklers. So the price tag to that would be about $300,000. Our whole budget's only $100,000. So and that would mean adding more staff. Our top two expenses are salaries and utilities. So that's something that the board will decide, and the community and all our partners that I mentioned will help us discern and look at as we move forward and seeing what those numbers are. And we're in a bad place right now economically across our nation. So I don't. I hope it gets better soon and that I work myself right out of a job, but I don't know reality-wise that's going to happen. So we want to be available for, again, these folks as long as we're able, and whatever that means. So we're just going to take baby steps. We want to do things really well and not go big and bad. We want to do things well as we go. So we're going to take baby steps to get wherever it is that we're going to land.
Okay, good. We've got more questions, but we don't have enough time. So we just have time enough to say thank you very much for being
Well,
here.
thank you for
We
having
will
me.
have you back at another date.
Wonderful.
So,
I
all
look
right.
forward to it.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about summer recreation programs. We'll be right back.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Al Wenig is here now. He is the Director of Recreation for the Oshkosh Recreation Department. And this is the first time that
He's
you've
a
been on the
first-time
program.
guest.
Yes,
Yes.
you're a newbie.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you very much for being here. Certainly we want to talk about, your summer activity guide here that we all, I think, got in the mail recently and that kind of thing. But, your programming actually doesn't start just when the kids are out of school for the summer. Some of it's already getting underway. We had a bad storm last night. We're taping this on the 3rd of May, and last night, boy, it was quite the storm. What has that done to any programming that you already maybe had underway?
We did have a bad storm, and weather is always a concern for us whenever we have outdoor activities. And the main item that we had going right now, it just started this week, is our adult softball program. And rain is the enemy of softball.
It sure is.
At times it can be good because you need it, just like with everything else, to improve the fields, actually improve your grass and whatnot. But when we got the heavy rain like we did last night and through the day today, it totally wiped out activities because the fields were just not playable at all, weren't safe.
Yeah. So, but probably by next week then?
Well, we would hope before that, because our next night of play will be Sunday night, and pretty optimistic with the forecast that we'll be ready to go again.
Okay, good. Well, let's talk about, first of all, the Department of Recreation. I think because people, they hear City of Oshkosh Recreation Department, I think the general thought is, among most people, I know I thought about it for years, is that it's part of the city, and it's not. You're actually under the umbrella, if you will, of the Oshkosh Public School System.
Correct.
How did that come to be, and is that something that is unique to Oshkosh, or is that something that is pretty common throughout the state?
It's not common, and it's not really unique either.
It's both.
It is both, yeah. It actually started, the Oshkosh Recreation Department has been under the school since 1916, since its inception.
Okay.
That came through public referendum at that time. It was approved by the public. And the main reason it started there is because that was the model for all recreation departments at that time. And it evolved out of the playground program that was provided for kids, as well as the yesteryear's after-school care, so to speak, for kids. And then as a result of kids being in schools and using school facilities, more programs were developed and a recreation department was formed. So that really was the original model that existed pretty much countrywide. Several communities then evolved their departments to park and recreation departments under city governance. Oshkosh retained the school district model, and we've been that way ever since. In terms of uniqueness, there's approximately 30 of us in the state. In our area, besides Oshkosh, Fond du Lac and Sheboygan are also under the school system. But the big majority of them are down south in the metro Milwaukee area, with the city of Milwaukee, our largest community, having that model, as well as our second largest city, Madison, being under the schools. And then the rest of them are made up with the suburbs of the Milwaukee area. Most all suburbs in Milwaukee have the school district model.
And do you get any funding from the city, or does all your funding come from the school district?
It all comes from the school district,
Okay.
right? We are a part of the school district tax base. We prepare a separate budget that is approved separately by our school board, but it is then a part of the entire tax appropriation for the community.
That's interesting.
Can I break that down a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
All right, what do you get from the school district, and how much money do you generate per year in revenue? That would be your total budget.
Total budget's about $1.4 million.
Okay.
In terms of taxation, it's approximately $900,000
Okay,
in that area, and the rest of it's then through
Revenue and other things.
fees, right,
Okay.
program fees,
$500,000.
right.
How many people are employed?
By the department,
Yeah, direct.
full-time we have 7.
7.
That includes myself. We have 2 program supervisors that have specific program responsibilities,
Okay.
2 clerical staff, a maintenance individual, and then also an auditorium stage manager. Another one of the major responsibilities of our department is the management and maintenance of Alberta Kimball Auditorium. So everything that occurs
Wow.
there
That's interesting.
Is part of you.
is under our under our administration. Correct.
Well, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been there, Al?
June 1st will mark 31 years for me.
Oh my heavens.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's a newbie on the show, but he's,
Yeah.
not a newbie in
No,
Oshkosh.
not at all. Not or to the recreation
Yeah,
department.
wow.
Right.
Huh. Well, I'm fascinated by the fact that the Alberta Kimball Auditorium is part of this
Yes.
too.
One of the other responsibilities of our department is that we schedule all activity in the school district in all buildings weekdays after 6 o'clock p.m. and all weekends and holidays. And then related directly with that is the auditorium, which has a lot of that type of activity. So again, all activity that occurs in the buildings has to get reserved and approved through our office. We send out master schedules into all the schools. Reason being is we're kind of the clearinghouse to avoid conflict.
Sure.
But then again, with the auditorium, it was just a part of our responsibility, being the community recreation department, to take care of that community theater. And again, all contracts and whatnot are scheduled through us, and then the maintenance of it likewise is done, taken care of by us. We've been very fortunate too in the recent past that we've received some very nice, generous gifts from the Kimball Foundation to make some major improvements to that facility. So it's starting to look pretty nice, I think.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Well, you do a good job over there.
Well, thank
throughout
you. Yeah.
the year.
And there's
we-
some
we
major
attend
events there.
several
The
things
biggest
over
one
there,
that we
yeah.
have is Miss Wisconsin. I mean, that's a 2-week event in the month of June annually that the state's eyes are on that auditorium.
Yeah.
And it's gone well because it's been in Oshkosh for a number of years now.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this summer activity guide. I think that pretty much, we can't really get a close-up on this
Yeah.
right now, but I think everybody pretty much got one of these in the mail.
Right.
I actually, Al, I don't recall getting one of these in the mail in the past. I think it's always come like in the buyer's guide, and after a while, I didn't even get the buyer's guide anymore because I was tired of it landing wherever on my lawn,
Yeah.
and sometimes it wouldn't land there at all.
Yeah.
And so I just finally said, just forget it. And so it's been a while since I've actually seen one of these, but now they're coming in the mail.
Correct.
And
that was
what
new,
happened there?
New first time was this spring, where it was direct mail to all residents in Oshkosh. Probably the main reason for that is because the buyer's guide is no more. They, I guess for lack of a better word, went out of business, so that option was not available to us anymore. And so we pursued several different alternatives to see what might work best, and we sent out some proposals to various publishers. And when it came back, our best opportunity was to go actually with the same company that has published this in the past, but our distribution method had changed, where now it's direct mail versus through the buyer's guide itself. And we have found already in our registrations that that's proven to be very, very favorable to us. As a result, in processing registration, as of right now, we have 100 new families in our database compared to just last year. So again, it's worked out great as you said, you're getting it directly in your hands now. We used to promote it quite heavily, that it was coming out in the buyer's guide, but as you mentioned with your own example, some people still just weren't actually getting it, and perhaps we're not being as aware as we would like of opportunity. So this should enhance that now.
3 cheers for the post office.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And, just out of curiosity, what did it cost to mail this out?
It came to roughly, I believe, $4,200. Now that's with publishing also. So
That's
Printing
really, I
and
think,
delivery.
pretty reasonable.
printing and delivery, correct.
I think that's
correct.
pretty
Not bad.
reasonable, really.
Yeah, it's worked out well. We probably paid about half of that when we were going the other method, but we're finding, as I mentioned, that additional cost is going to be very favorable in
Sure.
the long run to us.
And these extra 100 people that you've already got in your database, when people call up and they register for a program, Al, do you ask them how they heard about you? I mean, can you attribute it back to this being mailed out, or?
We really haven't, but sometimes in our advertising that we send out for various things, we always put in there, please let us know that you saw this ad, so that when they do come back and we get that response, we know that people are seeing those ads.
Sure.
And then obviously we'll continue with that type of promotion then too. So.
Okay, good. Well, so what do you got on tap for us? What can Dan and I do this summer?
Well, as adults, it's never too late to get signed up for softball yet if you want. That's always
my.
an option.
We're both knee recipients of new knees. I think our doctor would
Well, we
like.
do have veterans leagues though too out there.
Really? What?
We do. We have 2.
Really?
One is a 35 and over league for those individuals of that age level.
Okay.
And then we have another one that's a 45 and over league.
Okay.
And honest to gosh, we have an individual in that league that's 83 years old and
Oh,
still
my
playing,
God.
playing softball. Yeah, so
We better not complain.
there's a lot of
No.
diehards out there
I guess so.
that still play. So, but beyond that, there's always the opportunity to take advantage of Pollock Pool to go swimming at any time. There is opportunity to take our tennis lessons if you'd be interested in playing tennis. To be honest with you, there's probably more youth opportunities in the summertime. Obviously, kids are out of school for the
Sure.
summer and need activities to do than there is adult activity.
So what kinds of things will the kids be doing this summer if they take advantage of
Well,
of
for
your
the kids,
programming?
one thing that we always like to make clear is that we're not about just sport activity that kids can get involved in. We do have a lot of that available to them, again, with tennis and golf lessons and our sport camps. But beyond that, then, too, we've expanded our offerings in recent years to include, as an example, we have one program called Healthy Kids in the Kitchen, where they get into the classroom, instructor teaches them how to cook food so they can become a little bit self-serving in that area, and how to properly do it with safety methods so that they have all the precautions necessary to make sure things are done right. We have a little Einstein's program where kids take a day workshop where they come in and our instructor teaches them a little bit about science for that given day on a specific topic that would be selected that time. We have our traditional playground program. That's drop-in program similar to what we had mentioned earlier in the show here now. Kids just drop in, they stay for a 3-hour period or whenever, or I should say however much time they want to spend there. And we have leaders there that provide games and activities for them. There's the traditional swim lesson program where kids learn how to swim. They can go to Pollock Pool to just enjoy the pool and get refreshed. So we like to think we try to provide a pretty good variety for kids during the summer months.
On all of these programs, would you just touch briefly on the release of contract liability that every parent has to sign?
We have a waiver form that's a part of the registration, which basically states that kids are participating at their own risk,
Right.
And that, in a sense, barring negligence on our behalf, that we're immune from liability.
Okay. And that's pretty standard for most places.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, there's a couple things here that I'd like to touch on a little bit. Well, I guess they're the same thing, just in different places, actually. It's adapted sports programs, sport offerings for the disabled. So,
Right.
see, you can't use that as an excuse. I mean, tell us a little bit about this. I mean,
Sure.
what,
If you sign up, I'll sign up.
well, I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, that is a program that we have during the course of the school year as well as during the summer months.
I get it.
And it's in partnership. During the school year, it's in partnership with our department, the Oshkosh YMCA and UW Oshkosh. What it entails is we provide facilities for the program to occur. UW Oshkosh, as well as the YMCA with their pool. UW Oshkosh provides the staff, and it's basically the kids at the university who are in the adapted sport program that come and volunteer their time, or actually it's a part of their class requirement, with their instructor, while the athletes then come to the program and activity is provided for them. Specifically now for the summertime, it's the adapted aquatics program that's occurring at Pollock, where on those given dates that we have listed there, individuals from around the area can come and swim at Pollock Pool with that. The time is specific to them, and then it'll be again supervised by the UW Oshkosh staff with the students serving as additional supervision.
Okay. Something else that I was noticing here, you've got special events, and these are at the water park, the Pollock Community Water Park, but you've got like an H2O and show. You've got a teen night luau and karaoke, which is dedicated just to teens. What's that all about?
Okay, those
And that's in August, by the way.
Yeah. All of those events are actually being run by the city parks department because Pollock Pool is their facility. We are a partner with them in its operation during the course of the summer, where again, they own the facility. Our involvement with it is that we provide on a contract basis the lifeguard staff for that facility.
Okay.
Those actual special events are being run by the city. We're a part of it in promotion, as well as then having the staff there to guard it when it does occur.
Okay.
So to be honest with you, specifics on that would be more appropriate through the Parks Department.
Okay. And we will be, just kind of a programming note, we'll be having the Parks Department Director on in an upcoming week. So we'll ask him that
Sure.
question if we remember
Sure.
it. And Dan was talking to you earlier about employees. Now, I would assume with summer, you're going to have additional
Yes.
people on
Yeah.
board, aren't you?
Yeah, as we mentioned, we have our full-time staff, but probably the most important aspect of our department is our part-time staff because they're the ones that are delivering the programs face-to-face with our participants. And in the summertime, we probably have close to 200 part-time staff that do work in several different capacities, including our lifeguarding staff. We have instructors for our various sport programs. We have the instructors in the educational programs, as I mentioned, the little Einsteins, the kids in the kitchen. Our playground leaders and our tot time leaders. So there's opportunity there for people to gain some summer employment.
Okay.
Your Pollock Pool is open from June 2nd to August 22nd. And I know you can't be open earlier because students are in school. You can't open later but boy, if you could squeeze another month.
Oh, another month?
I mean, even if you ran it in the afternoons with kids, your revenue would. I mean, that's August and September are warm months.
Sure, but the biggest thing that drives that schedule is availability of lifeguard staff.
I understand that.
Right.
But
And-
kids out of school at 3, maybe some couldn't.
But a lot of the kids that do guard are involved in sport
Sports.
activities once this fall school year
Yeah.
kicks in. And then our college staff, they're gone off
Yeah.
to college
It's
by
tough,
mid-August.
isn't it?
It is tough,
Yeah.
yeah. We would love to do that
Yeah.
through Labor Day at least, but
Yes.
honestly, what kind of drives that schedule a little bit is availability of staff to make sure that we meet the code that's needed to properly staff
understand.
it. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Sure. Go
I want you to talk about Menominee Field 8 and the
Okay.
controversy that erupted at the last Common Council meeting and was extended with citizen comments at the Park Advisory Board meeting
Okay.
last week. Maybe you can just give me the background.
Sure. Menominee 8 is the field that's located north of the Reitz softball complex, which are the two lighted fields in
Right.
Menominee Park. Prior to the pump station being built down at the park in that location,
Right.
there always was a diamond there.
But the plants took it away.
The plant took it away
Right.
because of the construction.
Gotcha.
So basically, it's just coming back.
Right.
So the construction of it that's occurring is in progress right now.
Right.
People are seeing that obviously, but to be honest with you, bottom line, it's just returning because we originally had it there prior to that pump house being built. Now, one thing that's different is its direction, where before it was the home plate area and backstop was located up near where the pump house currently is. That's been turned around a little bit so that now they're going to be actually hitting out towards the Hazel Street area more. So
The beef on the Common Council was that you sort of, not you, the $6,000 gift to move it to the new location of Field 8 circumvented the special gifts policy and didn't go to the Parks Board for any hearing. And all of a sudden, boom, it's on the agenda of the Common Council. So some people raised objections, and Bob Peschel, who is the council member on the Park Advisory Board, voted against it because he thought they had circumvented the process.
yeah, and I'm not sure.
I mean, lay that on
No,
you,
I'm
but-
not sure what their specific process, but that $6,000 gift was a commitment that our department had made to improving that area. And that is done through our Diamond Improvement Fund, which we've had since 1983. And what that entails is additional dollars that are collected from the players' fees that are earmarked specifically for diamond improvement. And we've been doing that on facilities throughout the city, as I mentioned, since 1983. And back in September, when we were reviewing what our needs were going to be, we had said that at this time we'll commit $6,000 to the improvement of that facility.
Okay.
So all the improvements that are occurring now on our softball fields are primarily a result of that fund, as well as the city parks portion of it through their budget. But our improvement fund is used specifically for that. And we've put up scoreboards, score booths, we've improved diamond surfaces, we've put up fencing on several different facilities. And that $6,000 was just a part of all of those improvements that we've done in the past also.
The broader issue is there's too many rec activities going on in Menominee Park. We've got to save the park from intrusion of more and more and more. I'm sure I know what side you're on, but I'm a walker, and there may not be any space left in that park in the next one. It's one thing after another.
I think and it's an issue that's worthy of a lot of discussion, but I think one thing that needs to be said is that Menominee Park in specific is probably the one facility in our community that has those facilities and land available for active recreation. A lot of other parks are more on the passive recreational side, such as South Park, a beautiful park. Or there's the small neighborhood parks that have the small playground area for kids to play on close to residential areas. Menominee Park is really Oshkosh's main facility for active recreation for youth and adults, and probably the only one, primary one at least, for adults. And obviously as a recreation professional, I like to see activity because that's what we're all about.
I like walking. I don't like sawdust days. I don't like a
and
month of
those-
the festival lights. It's encroaching on my peace and quiet of a park.
Yeah. Now those are special events that occur there.
Yes.
But then regular programming that occurs down there, especially during the summer months.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, in Oshkosh and Wisconsin, we live for the summer months.
Right.
Yeah.
People want to get out and be active, and that's
No, I understand.
that's Oshkosh's biggest playground.
Yeah. So, Al, I'm trying to kind of understand in my head where the delineation of breakdown sort of occurs here, because you're talking about scoreboards at some of the ball diamonds and stuff. I was always under the impression, I guess, that the ball diamonds were under the purview of the city and the Parks Department. But that's kind of not the sense I'm getting from you. Is it sort of a collaborative effort?
It's absolutely a collaborative effort.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the main differences is that the Parks Department has most of the facilities, especially outdoor facilities. We provide the program for those facilities.
Okay.
Example being softball now. Yeah, the majority of our adult softball fields are on park property, but as a result of us being the active participants that program those, we then, through those Diamond Improvement Fund dollars, want to improve the facility for those players, and that's where then we will enhance it in whatever capacity we can with the new scoreboards and with surfaces that have to get improved. I mean, maintenance of anything is never ending, and that's where that fund does help us out.
So you work in close contact then with
Absolutely,
our parks director?
absolutely. You know, with the park use for those fields, with Pollock Pool, we have a formal agreement actually with that one. So I think the thing that kind of distinguishes us a little bit, again, is that the parks has facilities, especially outdoor facilities, and we program those facilities. You know, and one of the advantages, again, of being under the school district regarding facilities is that we then have access to a lot of the indoor facilities, gymnasiums and pools. And as a result of that, we can schedule those, and then through the consumer use participation, the cost is a little bit lower because we're a part of the school district. We're not paying a rental fee to use those because we are part of the schools.
Okay. All right. I know we've talked about how you're funded. You know, a large chunk of it comes from the school district's budget. You're pulling in money from the fees, you know, that people pay to participate in these programs. But I noticed that you're also having a fundraiser in August, on August 13th. At Cranky Pat's.
Yes.
What, you know, do you have a fundraiser every year?
This will be our second year with this relationship, and we're very grateful to Cranky Pat's for letting us do that, and I know they've extended the invitation to other groups and organizations. But on that night, our staff serves as the wait staff at Cranky Pat's, and they, again, as in turn for our service to them to serve as the wait staff, they give us the proceeds for that evening.
Okay.
And then we use those funds, we put into what we call our youth program fund, which are those kind of, quote, donated dollars that we might receive that we use to try to enhance those youth programs with, you know, any additional equipment purchases that we might make that we can't quite get through our regular budget.
Do you get to keep your own tips?
Actually, no. We take it all in and put it to the total
I'm
donation.
just kidding anyway.
But the whole proceeds from the dinner go. It's not 10%.
Yeah,
or
exactly,
20%.
Yes,
exactly,
it's
and that's
all
where
in, yeah.
Cranky Pat's, Jason Bayer at Cranky Pat's,
Three cheers.
extremely generous in
Yeah.
that regard. Yeah, it's been great.
What kind of money did you? I realize you've only done it one other year, but what kind of money?
Last
did you
year
raise?
we made about $600. So
Okay.
you know, it's not big bucks, but it's dollars that we put in that fund, and it can buy extra equipment that we might need for a program.
Sure,
It
sure.
works out great. I want to add too that right
Okay.
now we're also in the middle of a additional fundraiser where we just have a 50-50 cash raffle occurring, where we're selling tickets to the general public for the usual $1 per ticket or 6 for $5. And then on May 23rd, and this is our second time with this also, we'll have a drawing where our winner wins half of the proceeds that we collect.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for being here. We're going to right a wrong here, and we're going to have you back on a more regular basis.
Really,
'cause-
this is very informative.
Yeah,
It's
it really
important.
is.
I would welcome that.
Yeah.
That'd
All
be
right,
great.
Super. And as far as these guides go, you can pick one up at the rec department if you didn't get one in the mail. And I assume the park department probably has some.
They
of
have
those
some there too.
I think
Exactly.
the reference room in the public library has them too.
They do.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we keep
Okay.
them there also.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
terrific. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
we
for
really
the
appreciate
opportunity.
it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
All right, and that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.